So, what's the motivation to come here? I've been in Slovakia, right? Love, if you have, a woman.
Well, I followed the money.
Follow the money. Culture probably starts to play more and more of a part in the marriage.
And my son said, "Yeah, I mean there are not many people there, but we don't mind because they're just smiling and colorful."
Back and I want to speak it in Slovak, and they speak to be back in English.
Thank you, Sanya, for joining me again. I'm so excited. Last time we decided we would do this podcast
Yeah.
immediately after the first one we did, which was Home Away from Home.
I know, right? I know.
And it's been 18 months.
It's taken a while.
Yeah, I've got my reading glasses on. I've grown 18 months older.
I know.
How have you been?
I'm good. I'm good. Devi, I see you. I see you quite often anyway. But, yeah, I'm good. I'm happy to be doing this again. And,
You know why I thought this could be a great comeback episode? Because we got so many positive comments and some questions on let's talk a bit more, and I thought let's do it. So we'll talk about around the same theme and framework, which is home away from home, life as a foreigner. But if you remember last time, we were very careful not to touch topics like racism, politics, bureaucracy.
yeah.
We will still not touch
Tentative
politics.
topics, Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I thought, we could be a bit more candid, bit more specific to some of the experiences and, stories and anecdotes you can share, right?
Agreed.
And for the audience who are watching us for the first time, I know you pretty well. You're from Nigeria.
Yep.
And you've lived in Germany before you moved to Slovakia.
Yes.
But tell us again, what motivated you to move here?
Yeah. So, what's the motivation to come here? I've been in Slovakia, 15 years, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I met one guy today, actually, on my way here. I met one guy. He's a football player. And so he asked me, how long have you been in Slovakia? I said 15 years. And the look on his face, he was shocked. He was like, really? Because he's only been here like under 2 years, he said. So, yeah, I mean, coming back to the motivation, right? Love, if you have, a woman. I think 15 years ago, that was probably the...
Okay, are you saying love brought you here, right? So, great. That's a great motivation.
Yeah. Followed the love trail. Brought me here. I think nowadays, though, that's kind of changed, hasn't it? A little bit. What brought you here, though, Divya?
Well, I followed the money.
Followed the money.
well, it doesn't sound so good, but yes, my career, my job brought me here. Yeah, so you followed women, I followed my job. But yeah, great. I think we are similar in that sense. We are both about a decade and more, 15 years. So I have few experiences and stories to share in terms of earlier days of adapting to the culture. But I want to hear from you, Sanya. You remember somewhere any specific stories that you would like to share with your children, maybe, or with with peers and with people who want to follow a similar path? Yeah, what were the first few weeks or months or even first few years like? Because now we're talking about a span of 15 years. Things have changed.
I don't know what to say. I mean, honestly, when I think about that question, a lot's changed. I've seen Bratislava changed so much. I think you probably have as well. Right?
Yes,
it's changed a lot, hasn't it? And I think I was speaking to one of the guys at work the other day. He's also been as long as I have. Ryan, Ryan, right? Yeah. And we were talking about how 15 years ago, when we would go to the restaurants, we usually have like one of our colleagues asking them, can you order the drinks for us, or can you order the food? I want this. And now, when you go into the restaurant, my Slovak is brushed up and
take pride.
More Slovak, and I want to speak it in Slovak, and they speak to be back in English. So everywhere you go now, everyone's speaking in English, which is obviously a sign that things have changed in Slovakia, no?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I said, the first few years of experience versus now, in the same setup, our experiences are so different. I also remember, I was struggling. I always used my friends' help, or use them as a translator. Now I just walk in. Sometimes
your Slovak is pretty good, though. I have to admit, your Slovak is pretty good.
I walk in, and now I walk in, and I think I already know. I'm very confident. I speak in English actually, just to try how are things still, moving. And people are not offended or not surprised if I just throw them a question in English. And most often, most of the times I hear them replying back in perfect English. So yes, Slovakia has changed.
I think one of my other experiences that I remember, I don't know if you and I talked about this in the past, but was or is like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
If I saw a black person on the street, I remember then I would say I wouldn't see a black person for a month. Coming into the office, going to work every day, I'd see one black person a month maybe across the street. And we would acknowledge each other like, hey, that kind of thing. And my friends, my colleagues would be like, do you know him? Do you know her? I'm like, no. But we just acknowledge each other because, it's a rare sight. That's changed now.
Yeah. I have to ask this now. I don't know. I know. I think, I've heard that this works as a man, it might work in your favor because you're exotic and, if, being black, being a person of color. How did that work out for you? Did you see a lot of that happening? People
what do you mean, like
complimenting you, or people, you just.
I think that probably worked more when I spoke the language.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's general everywhere you go. Like if you can demonstrate that you speak some of the language, it really goes a long way. I think that helps here. When I take the car to the garage, when I get to the garage, they already know who I am. Hey, Sanya, you're here again, So how can we? And then they speak to me like I'm a regular local. I don't get the treatment, because I'll speak in their language, and I speak in Slovakian.
So Sanya, when we came here in the beginning, I think we were all conscious of the fact that we could be subject to racism. We could be subject to being seen from that lens. That was the first few years. Versus how you feel now. Because personally, let me tell you, I do not have, now I do not feel conscious about my race being different, or me being a brown girl, an Indian girl, a person of color, in a very, I would say, I wouldn't want to say white nation, but it's, Europe, and, we are still a minority.
Yeah.
So I have moved from being conscious and careful to being, I don't care.
What's that down to, though? Like,
I don't know. Do you think that Slovakia or Europe has become? Europe was always, but this part of Slovakia is getting more and more open and international, and Slovakia has been more visible on the global map, or the generations have changed?
I think it's a mix. I probably put it down to a mix now. I think it's probably, Slovakia, Bratislava particularly, has evolved so much over the years. There's so much more happening here. I think people are more enlightened as well than they were many, many years ago. The generations are changing. Our kids who were younger then are now older as well.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say I'm completely not conscious now. I still am. I am a little bit, maybe not as much as I was before, but I am still wary. And I don't look at it in a negative way. I just look at it like in every society, there will be elements who will not do the right thing, or not because of your, because of your race. You will always find that. And I'm always conscious of the fact I have to be aware of that, because I'm worried that, it can happen randomly.
Right.
That something negative can happen to me randomly just because of my race. So I'm constantly aware of that. Like, I have to be prepared for that. I don't expect it, but I'm prepared for it, like if it happens. So that's how I see it, really. But I don't consciously think about it in a negative way.
Yeah. And I also wanted to check with you, how true is this from your own personal experience? People say that when we talk about Slovakia being open to foreigners, and especially people of color and different race, there is a bubble that we live in, which is the capital city and, the bigger cities and towns versus the rural and the agriculture.
There's probably some element of truth to that, isn't it? Yeah.
Have you been in situations where you had a totally different experience living within your close circle in the company of your colleagues and family members, and basically in the city, versus when you're traveling to the east and the rural areas?
I would say, I haven't had anything negative or anything so I can clear that for sure. But I think there is the difference. I do feel a difference.
Right.
You know, I don't know how to put it. I can't quantify it. I can't measure it, but I do feel that there is a difference.
I think I'm waiting for my time to come. I haven't, and I should knock on the wood, because I haven't. I've traveled a lot in the smaller villages in the east with my family and friends. So far, haven't come across an experience that has left a bad taste.
Yeah, me neither. I haven't.
So either we are lucky, or probably this could be also a perception that is older, and people are changing just because they are so exposed to information and news, even in the rural and internal areas, right? So they see more and more foreigners anyway all over. So so for me also, I do not have the distinction, but every time I ask when I'm talking about being subject to racism, they say, they often tell me, oh, you're living in a bubble.
Really?
Yeah.
Like
the locals. So I think
okay.
I would like to message this to the local. I think they are underestimating their own level of how broad-minded they have become, or the general population, or I might be naive.
I think there's another side to that probably, and I think it's the fact that, because I get that from my wife at home, she's also under the feeling like, don't take it for granted. Don't take the whole feeling for granted. So I think it's more that the locals, like a Slovak person, understands the thinking behind what a Slovak person may be thinking, right? And maybe it may not be shown to us, may not manifest to us physically, but they know how their people might be thinking, or how elements of their people might be thinking. I think, guys, be careful, because maybe you're not seeing it and it's not happened to you, but it does happen, even when it's not like a foreign person in their midst, but they've seen how people speak about foreign people in their midst. And
I think this is something, if we had to share this to folks who are planning to move, either as a traveler or expat or permanent, we need to let them know, or if we could share this, that it won't hit you on your face. So racism or these experiences, it's not so it's not direct and not but you have to be prepared for these occasional or very in pockets of places where you could see, and especially because they are not used to seeing foreigners. But I think
it's more so less that I would agree with you. I think it's more, it's less here than you'd find it in a more heterogeneous society, because here it's still, the overwhelming majority is
Slovak.
Exactly. So you're not like in their way. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not like, but if you go to a more heterogeneous society where there's more minorities, maybe 15%, 13% of the societies.
As example?
The UK, for example, France. Yeah. Where you have a larger mix, I think there is more of a tendency to have, and it may not necessarily be driven by race, it may be driven by other
because
factors.
That perception gets automatically and unfortunately mirrored across the board, any other countries within Europe, which is primarily homogeneous, right?
Exactly.
Not so diverse.
I think that's a positive for us here.
Good, yeah. So we should tell people who are planning to relocate or live in another country, choose a nation that's not yet so heterogeneous, right? You will be still a foreigner. You may get a bit of, race-related.
But it won't be. It'll be far less. You're less likely to have it. I mean, in 15 years I've been here, I don't think I have any, like you said. Maybe there are, maybe we're just lucky, like you said. Maybe there's other people with a different experience.
I think we gave it enough time. We've sticked around for 15 years. You have to be patient, We have to give it to the Slovak, Let's delve into a little bit of family and marriage, right? Because I think this was also a topic of interest, at least I come across a lot.
Yeah.
When we did the last video, there were comments and some on the YouTube page itself, but some, during my one-on-one conversations with people, it said, we would like to hear more about how it is to marry into a foreign culture. So let me begin with this. How was your experience with your partner's parents? Because I think you, and by this time when you decide to marry to a foreigner, you're already on the same page. There's a level of adaptation. You already respect each other's culture. The challenge comes when you introduce your partners to your family. Do you
that
have
was interesting. That was, I mean, I think mine went, me meeting her family was great, I think. But, they were already aware of me before then. And then when we met, it went smoother than I expected. Yeah. Initially, I thought it might have been a bit rocky. I was expecting it to be a little bit maybe rocky, but it was actually really good. Yeah. Of course, we weren't able to communicate.
Maybe that's myself a good
and her
thing,
dad,
right?
Myself and her dad, we both like football. So football united us instantly, of course. So I think in my case, it was great. I think her meeting my family, or rather my mom, wasn't as smooth, I think. And I think, without going into too many details, I think it was more, maybe there was a misunderstanding on my mom's side or my part of the family side, because I think there was an expectation that it would have been done differently, and I had a different approach to it. I was maybe a bit more laid back about it, and I think there was an expectation that I should have taken a more, maybe more formal, more traditional.
Were there certain rituals or traditions that were expected from both sides and did not?
I think on the Slovak side, no, but I think on my side, maybe there was more of maybe more of a traditional introduction, right? Yeah. So I lost that translation, but we're good. Yeah, they're good on both sides. So, but what about you though? How did it go for you?
It's been so long that I almost forgot, but it went smooth, unexpectedly for me, because I always, growing up in India, no one would have thought that this would be a situation. But what I have seen as a general human tendency, that when you're given a completely new situation, and especially for my parents who had never expected this, expectation would have been that I would marry into a different caste or community. In India, we have so many castes in different states, and I know that typical reaction is initial friction and all of that. But when I, gave them a bigger, challenge to handle, which is, imagining the daughter marrying into a different country and culture and completely different location, far away from
different
home.
Country,
I think it forced them to be open-minded. It was so surprising. I was really surprised. I was like, where were you all this time? Like, growing up, they had put so many conditions, but when it came to the real big decisions, they were really very open-minded, which I give kudos to my parents. I think at the end of the day, it depends on, I had kind of started to train them, because I was already, I had left home when I was very young after my high school. So the distance was something that they were used to it. And also the fact that I was living abroad before getting married to someone.
So maybe they weren't completely surprised by it. They might have expected, well, it could happen.
For them, it was more like, okay, finally she found someone, and finally she's going to settle down, rather than who is she settling down, and that kind of, they were like more worried for me. Any typical.
I mean, and the thing is as well. I mean, you're in Slovakia. I mean, the tendency. You have a higher probability of meeting a Slovak partner than you would an Indian partner in Slovakia, right?
Okay. So. Sanya, tell me something.
Yeah.
What cultural traditions from Nigeria are you blending in your household, or would you like to?
I think good question, Divya. I think I'm a man who's like widely traveled, but I still try to imbibe some sort of culture, something. It's not more traditional stuff. It's more like how did I grow up? And I think it's a culture of respect. Yeah. I'm trying to, especially for the kids, while I can't really teach them the language too much, I have tried a few words and they've just been in fits and giggles, of course, laughing. But it's more I'm trying to introduce some of my food, but also a culture of respect. And that is, number one, when you wake up in the morning, you got to greet. You got to greet your mom. You have to greet your dad. Morning, mom. Good morning, dad. Has to happen. You don't just wake up and walk past me in the morning. That's something maybe it happens everywhere else, but I felt it's very important. I grew up like that, and that has to happen. Or When you come back from school, same thing.
Yeah.
Or if I call out to my kids, they don't just go, yeah, or what? They go, yes, daddy, yes, dad, yes, mommy. You know, so they have to, that respect has to be there, you know. And I think when they respond like that, then it kind of sets a tone for the conversation.
Right.
But I'm still relaxed with them, of course. I'm not like some kind of straight up
That's
guy or anything. But yeah, that's the most important thing for me, that they have to respect not just your parents, but respect elders as well.
Yep.
Other people from other families. And I think in Slovakia it happens where they, you know, dobrý den, the kids greet. So my kids have to do that as well. Yeah. And what about you then?
What about me? What cultural
What are you bringing
traditions?
in from India, to the family?
Well, I'm a typical Indian mom. My kids are already making fun of me, and they call me, you're such an Asian mom. I don't know what that means, but I think they're watching a lot of these TikTok videos and getting aware in their own way about cultures. But I think I grew up, like you said, with undisputed respect for your elders. So you grew up with your parents, your grandparents, your uncle and aunts. If they're visiting, doesn't matter how close or distantly related you are. If you're family and if your parents have brought you up this way, you have to pay respect. You cannot just ignore the greetings. In fact, in India, one thing very specific, since you asked, both my children grew up here and they're practically Slovak. They've not seen or they've not grown up in India. Yeah. But when they go and meet my parents, you know, we have a custom of touching feet.
Okay.
And that's the first or very important
that's interesting.
Gesture for greeting when you meet for the first time after a long time. Not every day once you go in, but at the airport. And nice. I have made that, make sure that that's a habit that remains. And even they do not understand or they are a bit conscious, they do it. And I'm very happy about that. So yes, touching feet when they meet the elders. Not maybe elders here like their Slovak family members, but my Indian.
More to connect with their Indian heritage.
Yes,
right?
And a few things like it's not very religious, but more of a spiritual habit that we've all got, like, you know, saying your prayers in the night. So my both children, they do not speak Hindi very fluently, but they do know some chants in Sanskrit, which we I don't know if you know, but Gayatri mantra is a very in my opinion it's more it's more spiritual than religious. But I was always chanting the Gayatri mantra in the night, even since I was pregnant with my children, and that remained as a habit, and they know it by heart. So these are some of the things, you know, or calling like my son should call her elder sister Didi, because we do not call them by name.
Really?
But he has found his own way, so he doesn't call her by with this title Didi when he's outside.
Nice. Okay.
But when I force him and I'm like, call your elder sister, call Didi, he would respond to that.
That's nice.
So these are small things, but yes, I think at the core of it, like you said, making sure that they do not lose touch of the respect to the family and elders. Yeah,
I think that's very important. And I think, I mean, like I said, while I don't teach them the language, but I would really like to, I mean, one thing I have told them is one day I haven't taken them to Africa yet, but I've said to them, one day I will take you guys there, because that will teach you to be more appreciative of what you have.
Yes.
You know, because while they do appreciate what they have, I think sometimes, you know, I look and I think you guys haven't seen some stuff in the third world, you know. So I think, and it's nice that they have that option from having a multicultural situation at home, right?
Absolutely. And I think this is one of the advantages of the new generation who are from this mixed race family is they are naturally so intelligent culturally, so accepting, because they are learning by practical ways. They're learning as part of their life. Like you just mentioned that you want to take them to Nigeria. I do take my children every year to India, and I see from each year, after each year when they come back, in their perception of India, it's changing. And some of the observations and some of the comments they've made, like my daughter said, Mom, it's so good to be in India because everyone is so happy there. And this was a comment she made. And I asked her, I said, what makes you say that, you know, because everyone is smiling, you know, and And my son said, yeah, I mean, there are not many people there, but we don't mind because they're just smiling and colorful. And I felt like my 10-year-old and my 8-year-old, if they can feel this and sense this, I mean, this is something that they are probably comparing or appreciating. And this was for me so relieving to
because
hear.
They're seeing, they can feel the difference, the energy instantly. The energy,
so I mean, again, like I said, this could be a topic for a whole new episode. But I think in general, people are very naturally reserved here in this part of Europe. Very prim and proper.
I'll tell you what, Divya. Like we were in Vienna a couple of weeks ago. I took my daughters to a 3D museum in Vienna. And when we got there, I left them in the car to go get something, maybe at the machine to get some cash or something. I don't remember. And when I got back to the car, my older daughter was like really like wide-eyed a little bit. And she was like, Dad, man, there's so many people of color here. Yeah. And it's not like she's never been to Vienna, but, as she's growing older, she's becoming more and more aware.
Yes.
Like when she was younger, when we went, she probably wasn't thinking about it. But now I can see that she's getting more and more aware of the people now. She's looking not just at where we are, but noticing people, the different races. And she mentioned it. She was like, wow, there's so many different people here, different races, different colors, different heights, because she's always feeling like she's so short in school. She's one of the smallest in her class.
Yeah, my daughter has the same situation. Recently she started saying that, Mama, why am I the shortest one in the class? And you know what I tell her?
I said, Slovakia's got giants.
That's also true. But you know what I said? Be happy, because you'll always find a tall man.
Yes.
So you have a daughter, right?
Yeah.
Now there you go. That's your answer.
Thing. I said the short ones are the cutest ones.
Yeah. My days I used to be told good things come in small packages. I'm like, oh, that's
so don't feel bad about it.
Exactly. But now I'm going to tell my kids, you'll always find a tall man, whatever or whatever.
Exactly, not to make him feel bad for being, smallest in the class.
So I mean, and look, I think I would like to talk more about this. I had a few more questions on specific to raising mixed race, but I just wanted to touch very quickly before we move out of the topic of marriage and family. Any challenge that you faced which you could share with us, which is only because of this intercultural marriage? Anything that you felt like, okay, this could be a challenge for people who might get into this journey or
that's a really good question. Okay, I think,
or maybe I used a singular word, challenge. Are there challenges?
Well, probably are challenges. I probably won't go into any details like that. But I mean, one thing I think we both can say for sure is that, I've been married a long time. And I think over the years, I've noticed that as you stay in the marriage longer, culture probably starts to play more and more of a part in the marriage. I think at the beginning when you meet, and you're both young and the world's your oyster, you don't care about culture at that point. It's just, hey, we're hanging out, drinking. My mates, he's from this place, he's from that place. We're all hanging out. But then when you've been in a marriage, you're living together and you're getting older. And I think the culture starts to become more, not the big part, but it starts to reveal itself. You think about it more, right?
I cannot agree to you anymore. And in fact, at the beginning, the culture is a novelty thing, right? So that plays in your favor.
Yeah.
My girlfriend is exotic, Indian or from Africa. Yeah. But yes, I totally agree. So if you throw back that question to me, which you're doing, I see that.
Exactly.
I would just mirror your answer, copy and paste. Yeah. Exactly. I think over the period of time, when you spend a longer time in the marriage, you see that the culture starts to become a factor.
It does.
Which impacts, because you bring in those values and those beliefs. And
values become more important, don't they?
Yeah. And those differences could lead you either ways. So we'll have to be acknowledging that.
At that point, you start looking for middle ground.
Yeah.
Suddenly middle ground becomes so much more important.
You want to be Switzerland.
Yeah, exactly. Be neutral, but you can't, because suddenly your partner likes it more this way and you like it more this way. All of a sudden, it's something that you didn't care about 10 years ago.
And a great segue to, this topic of children, because when you have children, you can't, you cannot help but go for the neutral ground, because raising children from two different cultures, again, you have to not let go completely of your own identity versus trying to
That's right.
Get best of both. But I was thinking, let's talk more about. We mentioned, our children are mixed race, biracial.
Yeah.
How do your children deal with it? Because I believe this is going to be a lifelong journey for them.
Yes, you're right.
The identity which neither of us have lived and we cannot relate to.
And it has started, in my case, I can say it has started.
Yeah.
I'm getting questions, or rather my wife and I are getting questions like from the younger one she's almost 5 years old, and she was asking, why is she brown? And all her classmates are white like you, mommy.
Yeah.
So she's asked that question, and we've just had fairy tale answers around it, like, hey, look at your dad, right? He's black. And or we might say something like, you're beautiful. You're special. You're different. It's a great color. Mommy wants to be like this in the summer when she's on the sunbed.
Right.
So she would learn, and stuff like that, right? And with the older one, it's more like she's had racial challenges in school. All of a sudden, that's come up, even though she's in a more international school.
Yeah.
But she's having that come up now, and she's questioning it in the sense that, and my initial theory, my wife and I are thinking, this is more maybe to do with the kids of her classmates who might say these kind of things. They're not fully aware of the implications.
Right.
So they think maybe they're being funny, or they've watched too much TV, and they think, oh, this is normal to say, So they're going through that learning process now.
Do you think that the reactions from the children, which are not so nice for your children, for your kids, has something to do with what they are seeing and learning, or maybe observing in their own families?
I think in Slovakia case, no, and yes. No, I think it's more to do with too much Netflix.
Yeah.
Too much gangster stuff on rap music, anything like that. It could be anything like that.
Yeah.
And they've totally misread how maybe they think it's cool to say that kind of stuff, And I think to your point as well, I think maybe there are probably some families, we can't rule that out, that there will be some families that will be leaning in that direction, and the kids will naturally pick that on. But I mean, does it happen to you? Do you have that at home as well? With your children, like I said before, my children do ask questions, and we are still maybe protected because we're living in this bubble, and luckily not in a way that bothers me yet. But for example, I was talking to my daughter yesterday, and I asked her, I said, what, I'm going to talk to Sanya about these topics. I just wanted to hear your feedback. Tell me. I've never actually asked her openly. Do you feel how do you feel being different in the group? And she actually said it's okay. So they're like, perfect. I don't mind. And I said, do you hear comments or questions from others who are local, which you don't like? And to that she said that, mom, the grown-ups, and she was talking mostly about her circle in school. So grown-ups like school teachers and all, they just ask, where are you from? So the standard question is not with any bias or the look in the eye that you are. It's a curious question.
It's just a curious question. That, hey, where are you from? Or you look different, or you have not nice hair, whatever. And then she said, but sometimes my schoolmates take it a bit too far with color. And I'm like, what do you mean with color?
Okay.
And she said, yesterday we were in the art class, and we were coloring, and we were asked to make something with brown, so we're making trees and all, or something they were coloring, and the kids were like, oh, this is gonna look like You See Me. And she took it as, she's like, I felt annoyed, but she's so comfortable and calm and composed because maybe she is used to it, because we made sure that from the very beginning we've integrated her into a local school. We did not send her to private English only school. So I think she has her own way of dealing. So it did not hurt her, emotionally so much as it was like, like, it's annoying me. Yeah, that's not a joke I like. But it was not still heartbreaking. And when I asked my son, he said, I just don't like to keep hearing that you have an interesting face, you know. And that was really very, he doesn't make more sense of it. He just doesn't like the attention. Yeah. So I was thinking maybe this is what they have to live with. Yeah. And maybe we need to teach them that this is part of your identity, and you have to learn to handle these questions because you are different. You can't change that, right?
Yeah, my daughter and I had that conversation as well. I think last year I told her, look, you know, be prepared, because she questioned a couple of things that came up, like why is she being singled out in some questions? Why didn't the teacher ask anybody else? Why did the teacher only ask me?
Yeah.
You know, Dad, I'm like, okay, look, it comes with the territory, so don't take it the wrong way. It may have just been a genuine question, and it might look bad. It's not always going to be bad, so just get ready for that.
And I think that, like I said, they have to live with this throughout their life. It's their journey. There's only so much we could do. So sometimes I just let them go through it themselves. I do not want to be an overprotective mother. I think my point of view here is, Sanya, that we have to show them that we are proud of our race. We have to accept our race first. So that's step one. Accept your race, so that they do not feel ashamed or embarrassed or you know, whatever is the right word, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
And slowly try to you know, integrate them into both the cultures, because they are Slovak and they are Indians, they are African and Slovak, their traditions and culture, as much as you could expose them to both. And I think as time passes they are going to learn on their own, but you cannot just give up on your own cultural identity, which I think I follow.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, I think this is great. So, you know, let me ask you one last question.
Go for it.
If someone is moving from your country, Nigeria or Africa or nearby country, to Slovakia, you know, we keep getting, I'm sure you get these questions in your own communities.
From time to time, yeah.
What is that one advice or watch out comments that you would like to give them?
Open mind.
Yeah.
Be very open-minded. Learn the language. You don't have to be proficient. Just learn the language, because it helps in your integration. And be prepared for a cold winter.
Yeah.
I'd probably use those three mainly. You know, learn the language for sure. And keep an open mind.
Get your winter clothes.
Get your winter clothes as well, because I probably mentioned it in the last podcast, where I met some guy who said lots of people leave because of the winter. They can't handle it.
Right.
They're not prepared for it mentally. So find a way to prepare for that mentally, and you can get through it. Yeah. What would you say, Divya? You've been here a long time yourself.
Of course, learn the language. Don't assume that Europeans speak English, or if they speak, they would like to learn the language. Language is absolutely paying respect to the culture.
Yes.
But also, I would say, be okay to be not smiled back at.
Yes.
I was told often that I smile a lot, and I was very conscious of that after a certain point in time. Do not take it personally. People here do have a natural demeanor of being reserved unless you really know them, they know you closely. So keep that in mind. Do not get offended if they do not at the very first or second meeting open up and smile and joke. So these are small things which I noticed. And yes, it's a beautiful country. Be prepared. Also, one more thing, get your hiking shoes, man. Like everyone loves to hike here. All the holidays are about hiking and trekking. Like just if you're planning to come to Slovakia, then you must start training, like physically training, because people
they'll leave you behind.
They love their sports and hiking and trekking, which is a good thing, right?
It's a good thing.
So last time I wanted to share this beautiful quote and I did not, and I was like, this one was something that was so close to my heart, and it hit me hard. I just wanted to end this conversation, and I'll share you with this lovely quote I read somewhere. Tell me what you think about this. It goes like, the day you start living in another country, you're no longer a tourist or traveler, but you're not a native either. You become something in between your old life and the new, and it doesn't matter how long you go for or come back. You will always be part of that collective who has lived this unique experience and know all too well the feeling of belonging and not really belonging, of living within the in-between, of knowing that both feeling homesick and at home, comfort and the unknown can exist at the same time.
That sounds like utopia to me.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So here is to being part of the collective.
Here we go.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Divya.
And we'll do another one.
Absolutely. Anytime. Let me know.
Thank you so much, Sanya. I really enjoyed this. Yeah.